Hello, I'm Dalton DeLand. I'm a columnist for the Berkshire Eagle, and this is Eagle Reels, where we take you beyond the news. My very special guest today, former Governor Deval Patrick. Welcome, Governor Patrick.
Thank you so much, Dalton. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Now, these days, you're a senior partner with the Vistria Group,
Mhm.
and you advise on positive social impact as well as financial returns. What are the sorts of investments that you're championing?
Well, we have this is a firm that was co-founded around the time I founded an impact fund at Bain Capital, and I know them well. I know the team well. We've done deals with them, and they share a philosophy that I do that you don't actually have to trade financial return for positive social or environmental impact. And we've chosen three areas to invest in where there is some inherent impact: healthcare services and access to them, what we call knowledge and learning services, so education, but mostly at this point, upskilling, job skills, and workforce preparation, and then financial services, meaning companies that are making financial services more broadly accessible to folks who don't have them. And that we now have, gosh, I think about $16 billion under management. That includes a real estate fund that it invests exclusively in affordable and workforce housing all around the country, and it's a lot of fun. It's I think the way to, as I say, demonstrate that this notion of financial return is on one side, and the right way to do business with a multi-stakeholder approach is somehow separate from that. And as we scale that example, I think it's a great example for capitalism as a whole.
Thank you, Governor Patrick. I think today's conversation, and we will touch on healthcare in a moment, but we're particularly timely because you're acting as Master of Ceremonies for the unveiling of a statue in Great Barrington, July 19th, of W.E.B. Du Bois. What does he represent for you?
Well, I have to tell you, Dalton, I love the question. It's itself informative because I didn't know until this moment what my role was to be. I knew I was going to be there. I'm excited to be there. Thank you for telling me that I am Master of Ceremonies. Um, Look, Du Bois, of course, was born and raised in Great Barrington. The Berkshires, generally, based on his writings, had a big impact on him. And the fact that we are acknowledging this lion of American, not just Black American, but of American thinking and progress and scholarship in our neighborhood is very personally meaningful to me. In fact, I've gotten to know many of the young historians, a number of them Black scholars from Harvard and Tufts and Yale and elsewhere, who have been working on identifying and lifting up the actually quite deep history of Black people's contributions to the Berkshires and from the Berkshires to America. And it's incredibly exciting for me. So I'm honored to be a part of it. I celebrate the good work of the folks who have made this possible, and of the town of Great Barrington for calling attention to one of its most famous sons.
Well, let's probe that deep history for a moment, okay? You were the first Black governor of Massachusetts. On your mother's side, the family traces back roots to slavery in Kentucky.
Mhm.
Are we in a time in which civil rights are being rolled back on a national basis?
Well, I think it's hard to answer that otherwise than saying, yes, we are. But I think I want to be very careful because I hear people say things like, nothing has changed. That's just not true. We are not the same country we were when I was born in the 1950s. And while we are not yet the country we can be, we are not the country we were. And I think it's very important to understand a point in history rather than where we are, and our responsibility for moving to a higher point, a better point in our future, rather than just feeling discouraged about these setbacks. And I'll say this as well, Dalton. I'm very clear about the rollbacks in rules, the ignoring of many of our existing civil rights laws, the cynical reinterpretation of some of those rules and customs. I'm very clear about the threat to everyone, not just black and brown people and women, but to the American idea that we're facing right now. But at the same time, I think it would be a betrayal to the ancestors who cared about and hoped for me to simply shrug my shoulders and say, well, I'm done. It's all a mess and nothing can be saved. There's more goodness in the hearts of people and more decency in the behavior and conscience of Americans than I think is expressed in our federal government right now. And it's a reminder about how important it is that we all of us, not be bystanders, but get involved.
Governor Patrick, as with your own achievements, I was privileged to work on a number of arts programs with President Obama. And I was
Mm,
thinking this morning that I never would have imagined in those years that somehow we weren't on that, arc bending towards,
mm,
justice, and that we were maybe going to hit a bump on the road here where maybe
mm,
we're taking two steps back.
mm,
Do
mhm.
you feel there's a long-term risk now, or is this just a hiccup?
Well, I don't want to treat it as a hiccup because it's meaningful in a lot of people's lives. It's meaningful in my life, whether it directly touches me or not, because we are certainly talking about a lot of issues that I've spent a lifetime working on in one form or another. And I have seen and lived what it's like to have doors opened for me, not, you know, a pathway paved for me, but a door open for me to make the most of that opportunity. And when I think about the so-called grievances of that the president campaigned on, the grievances as they described of white working people, of rural people around economic uncertainty and social isolation or despair, as measured by things like addiction rates or suicide rates, they are exactly the same wounds and hurts that black and brown people in cities have been experiencing. We are all anxious and anguished about the same kinds of things. And so we should be working together rather than being purposefully divided. We should be working together on those solutions. And those solutions are going to come in part from government doing what it is supposed to do to help people help themselves, from the private sector thinking about and behaving in ways that are more about the whole community and not just the handful of owners. It's going to require the contributions of the not-for-profit sector, and it's going to require an awareness and a self-consciousness from each of us as individuals and as providers and as members of the community and as citizens. And I think this time of kind of cruelty for fun and profit in our policy making and in our behavior. This isn't how you solve problems. Um, but it does touch in some ways, Dalton, a frustration a lot of people have with the fact that a bunch of problems haven't been solved. And so, as I say, I'm hoping that it's a as the term is, wake up call for a lot of us that we get the government we deserve. And if we want better, more effective, more positive, more forward leaning government, then we have to work for it.
You mentioned the cruelty of some of the policy changes going on. Something that I've written about as a columnist quite a bit, and I'd say without my usual, I'd say journalistic dispassion that I strive for, is the dismantling of USAID and PEPFAR. I was very aware of PEPFAR's achievements in Africa because I also worked with George W. Bush as well as his speechwriter Michael Gerson, who were instrumental in that. And this this chainsaw dismantling of these programs that have literally caused now innumerable lives lost in Africa, including many children.
Hmm.
Um, I have to ask you, beyond cruelty, it almost is this singling out? Does it have a racism to it? Well, I
Well,
know that's a tough one, but I want
no,
to.
it's not a tough one. The only, we ought not be, we shouldn't be careless in calling things racist, but we shouldn't be fearful of calling what is racist racist. The president has a well-documented history. His language, his behavior before office and in office is often racist. Um, and by that, I don't mean to say that there aren't justifiable reasons for examining any program. In the same way I used to say to my colleagues on Beacon Hill, none of us are actually entitled to these jobs. The fact that we have them doesn't mean we should always have them. So it shouldn't be such a big deal to be challenged. You should have to work to regain the job. That was considered, more than unorthodox, but downright disrespectful. I don't think there's anything so sacrosanct about this or that program. There's almost anything that can be done better. But if it is undone just for fun, just to disrupt, without any thought to what it might replace, what might be a better way. There are so many important initiatives that over time, through democratic processes, right? Persuasion and votes in the Congress, appropriations by the Congress, execution by the executive branch, implementation by the executive branch, professionalized over time by folks who were not there for political reasons. That's a system that, though slow, is durable. And it has done a lot of good. And having worked in government at the federal and the state level, as well as in business, I think people would be surprised how much gets done efficiently with limited resources in government, and how many of the people doing that work run to work because they feel so strongly about serving the public. So, there's a lot about Doge and the president's undertakings that if they were serious, might tell us something. We might learn something. There is an appetite, I think, for efficiency and simplicity and accessibility in government. But that's not what we got. What we got and have been getting is the most unserious performative meanness. And as you say, or as you asked, some of it is motivated just by hate.
Well, bringing us back then to domestic policy and the policymakers, as you just talked about. Back in 2006, you implemented Governor Romney's healthcare reform. Um, and now we have, through the One Big Beautiful Bill, very interesting timing that after the midterm elections next year, we get cuts to Medicaid. Uh, Thoughts on this?
Well, you know, I congratulated Governor Romney on signing that bill when I was a candidate, which is makes it seem so quaint now when you think that a Democratic candidate for governor would congratulate the Republican incumbent for signing a bill, but I thought, it moved the dime. It was a big experiment. It was ambitious. I do take some umbrage in it still being called Romney Care since it went into effect the day I took office. And I'm very proud of the fact that we got the Commonwealth to 98.5%, I think, coverage in just a couple of years, and I don't think there's another state in America, even with Obamacare, that has gotten to that level. All of the imperfections and incompleteness aside, we are better off because of it. And that was a collaboration, to the point, Dalton, between state government and the federal government. This administration tried with a Republican Senate and I'm sorry, well, this president in his first term tried with a Republican Senate and Republican House. I can't count the number of times to repeal Obamacare. He couldn't do it. He couldn't, and it's harder to do now because it is more embedded. More and more millions and millions of people depend on it all across the country. And even in the so-called red states, I hate these terms, but even in the so-called red states, Medicaid has been expanded because it was crazy not to. It was an act of cruelty not to join that collaboration and help to save lives. I think what we're seeing now is the undermining of Obamacare without trying to repeal the actual legislation. And they've gone deep, and it will hurt in the Commonwealth and it will hurt elsewhere. And more to the point, it will hurt Americans. And I think that story needs to be told, and there have to be consequences at the next election and beyond.
Well, then going into the elections, you dipped a toe in presidential waters in
For
2020.
15 minutes, you can't even count it.
Okay. Well, 2028, many of us don't see who the Democratic candidate could and should be. Uh, your thoughts and any possibility that you have another 15 minutes in you?
um, well, first of all, I think that there's so much talent on the Democratic bench. Um, what I am looking for is not notoriety or fame. Back to the point I was making earlier. I'm looking for someone who wants to do the job, not just have it. And I'm looking for someone who will appreciate that the political dynamic today, in my very strong opinion, is not Democrat Republican. It's insider outsider. And most of us are feeling like outsiders. Most of us feel like the noise in Washington and in many state capitals is not about us. And guess what? It's not. It's performance, it's entertainment, and in a way to distract us from lots and lots of personal gain and power for power's sake. And that system is not serving us. So whether it's a Democratic, a contender for the Democratic nominee, or a third party candidate, that's a whole other subject. I don't know what that party would be, but it feels to me like there's more appetite than ever. I'm hoping that we will see just as ambitious a change agenda from such a candidate, but one that is about the care, the kindness, the sense of community that I think Americans yearn for across party and across region. And I hope that case is taken beyond the so-called battleground states and to all 50 states because everybody everywhere has a stake in it.
Yeah, it strikes me again as a columnist that if there ever is that third party, it's not going to be Elon Musk's debt ceiling one. It's going to be something more purple, I think, as you're suggesting.
Well, and I am suggesting that, and I think I hope we get to a point where the red and the blue and the purple and that stuff, which is practically not actually descriptive, disappears.
Thank you. Well, let's draw our ring as we begin to dismount here from this wonderful conversation. Let's draw it even closer in. You own, I believe, a second home in Richmond. What, and you've been
First home.
first home.
This is
Okay,
our
thank you.
primary residence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thoughts about the Berkshires?
Listen, this has been, gosh, nearly 25 years since we first put down stakes here. We owned the land for 5 years, and then we finished the house just about 20 years ago. And from the start, and wasn't my first time in the Berkshires. We'd been visiting for a long, long time. We had friends here, but from the start, the welcome has been so warm. Um, it's been a place of great peace, and also I think a place of great challenge. Right? We have an awful lot of young people who grow up here and leave because they can't find work. And they can't find work in part because it was a long time for the internet to reach and hasn't fully reached. We don't have enough public transportation. We don't have enough transportation strategies to get to places that are not that far away. If you don't have a car, they are. So I think there is a lot of work still to do, but it is a place of extraordinary richness in the landscape, in the culture, in the arts and creative community, and the variety of people and their sense of appreciation in common for this place is a really beautiful thing.
Well, finally, um, my elder son is very proud to own in the entryway to his house in DC, the famous Shepherd Ferry Obama Hope poster. So let me ask
Mm.
you, in these challenging times, what gives you hope?
You know, I've been teaching at the Kennedy School at Harvard, and there and elsewhere, I encounter young people who, though they are not in every way clear, although I tease them about they're certain about many more things than they have actually experienced. But anyhow, um, they're not sure how they want to engage, but they know they will engage. They know they have to. And whatever brings them to that point, that's good. We should encourage that because we're going to need their energy and vision, their stake in their own future to take us to that better and higher place. So I say if you find a young person and you encounter, ask them about that energy, and when you encounter it, encourage it because cynicism is their biggest challenge right now, and will be the biggest thing that holds us all back.
Governor, businessman, encourager in chief. Thank you, Deval Patrick, for joining us today.
Thank you, Dalton. Pleasure to be with you.
Viewers, if you're already a subscriber to the Berkshire Eagle, thank you. If you're not yet a subscriber, please consider becoming one. It is conversations such as this, keeping local journalism alive in America, that are so important with your help. I'm Dalton Deland. I'll see you next time on Eagle Reels and in the pages of the Berkshire Eagle.